At 7:11 a.m., my mother-in-law changed our Wi-Fi password to behave and said it was for the order of the home. I was still in my pajamas, halfway through a mouthful of toast, when the TV signed out. My phone blinked to the setup page, and Lydia, hair set, posture like a ruler, stood by the router with a tiny, satisfied smile. "Boundaries," she announced, tucking the new password into the family memo board, under the magnet shaped like a saint. "You to have none. I'm here to help." She was holding the spare key I'd asked Maya to take back months ago. The sunlight came in gold through the blinds, landing on the toaster like a cheap miracle. "We didn't invite you to move in," I managed. "Oh, sweetheart," Lydia said, patting the router like a pet. "You invite chaos when you don't invite me." It started smaller than Wi-Fi, as these invasions always do. A comment about the way I salt chicken, a raised eyebrow at the color of the sheets, the kind of help that sits down and replaces your spine. "I'll call the landlord. I'll edit your resume. I'll come with you to the dentist because you forget questions." I used to think it was love translated into louder. Maybe it was. Maybe it was grief going blind and feeling for the edges of her only child. Lydia had been widowed young and made a plan so strict it could hold water. She called it responsibility. I called it a chokehold with good intentions. Maya and I met in a class where the professor insisted the world would be saved by people who could listen. She listened like she meant to keep what you said clean. We built a life that clinked. Coffee spoons, ice in glasses, the soft metal sound of keys in a bowl at the door. We wrote our names on the lease and drew a little sun. We did grown-up things out of order: first the cat, then the couch, then arguing about paint, then figuring out how to apologize before coffee. We thought the hard part would be money or time. Turns out it was permission: who owns it, who grants it, who resents the person who doesn't ask. The first time Lydia used the spare key, she arrived with a roast chicken and a list. "You're out of paper towels," she said, bustling like competence given a body. "And the basil is dying because you water at night, Maya. Also, the cat is untrained." The cat blinked from the windowsill and forgave nobody. "Text us next time," I said, aiming for friendly. "Next time I'll replace the smoke detector batteries," she said, as if the sentence and the rule were the same. When she left, Maya pressed her forehead to mine and whispered, "She's just lonely," like a prayer we were both tired of reciting. Lydia had a rule for almost everything. The way a table should be set: forks know their place. The correct onion for each sauce: yellow for endurance, white for purity, red for showing off. If you asked why, she had a story that ended with a moral, like a door that wouldn't open unless you agreed. Somewhere in my bones, a small boy had learned to sit up straighter when adults sounded sure. Somewhere else, a grown man knew that love wasn't a checklist. The checklist kept winning. When we got engaged, Lydia threw a party that looked like a magazine congratulating itself. She held up her glass and said, "Marriage is a team sport with a coach," and everyone laughed the way people do when the joke is a confession. Wearing makeup. The next morning I found a binder on our kitchen counter labeled "The Plan" in block letters. Inside, contracts for venues we hadn't seen, a seating chart constructed like a battle strategy, and a page of vows she had drafted to get us started. They were beautiful, in a way that made my teeth hurt: poems about shelter and duty, and the way love should be more like a porch light than fireworks. "We can say our own words," I told Maya, surprised by the tightness in my voice. "We will," she said, then looked at the binder like it was a sleeping infant we didn't want to wake. When the florist asked what flowers Maya loved, Lydia answered, "Peonies, but only in a humble palette." Roses suggest vulgarity. At the tasting, Lydia sent back the short ribs because they didn't fall apart at her preferred sadness. She used the phrase "my wedding" twice before noon. I took notes on the menu like a hostage writes a letter home. "We can slow down," I told Maya that night, when the apartment finally remembered it belonged to us. "This is a lot." She lay on my chest and breathed like a person folding a map. "After the wedding she relax," she said. "She promised." "What does she do with promises when they don't fit?" I asked. "She trims them," Maya said, and we laughed because saying it out loud made us brave for 5 minutes. Then Lydia moved in temporarily while her bathroom was being renovated. She brought 3 suitcases, 2 framed icons, and a framed diploma in family systems counseling that she had received from a weekend program with a certificate printer. "It legitimizes what I already know," she said, hanging it above the hall table like a badge from a country she had appointed herself to govern. She put little labeled baskets in our pantry: grains, nuts, VICS. She taped a chore schedule to the fridge and assigned herself oversight. She switched our detergent to one that smelled like a hospital memory. When I moved the baskets back to the way my hands remembered them, she moved them again and hummed. The humming was a hymn and a warning. The day of the Wi-Fi, something in me took notes in a new color. I watched Lydia stand in our kitchen like a general reviewing a small, dumb army, and I heard a click inside the lock of my patience. "Give me the key," I said. She blinked as if I'd spoken in a language money doesn't need to learn. "Absolutely," she said, producing the key with a theatrical flourish and then placing it on the counter between us like a test I might fail by touching. "And the binder," I added before my courage could leave. "It's our wedding. We'll take it." Maya looked from me to her mother and back, face careful as glass. Lydia smiled, the kind that doesn't reach eyes trained to win. "By all means," she said. "Just remember, when you fail, you come to me. It isn't just the big things that break a person. It's the inventory of small surrenders." I started counting, the way Lydia corrected my stories in the middle, like a GPS that resents improvisation. The way she'd say we about decisions that had exactly 2 owners and 1 witness. The way Maya deferred in tiny, practiced gestures, shoulders angled toward her mother, eyes doing the math of peacekeeping. The way the cat began hiding under the couch when shoes clicked in the hallway. I kept a list on my phone titled, "Am I Crazy?" and wrote things like, "She ironed our pajamas and she told the UPS man to use the side entrance because the front door is for family." The list looked ridiculous and felt like proof. We tried therapy. Lydia came once, insisting she should be present for any conversation that impacted her role, the therapist. A woman with kind hands and eyebrows that refused drama. Reminded her gently that couples work is for couples. Lydia smiled and said, "Exactly," as if she had won. In the second session alone, Maya said she sometimes felt like a child being graded on a rubric only her mother understood. "And without the grade, I feel unsafe," she admitted, as if saying so were a betrayal of the person who taught her to breathe. I reached for her hand. "We can write a new rubric," I said. "Just us. My mother taught me to survive," she whispered. "Survival isn't a home," I said, and she flinched, then nodded. Then asked if the therapist had water she could hold between both palms. The bathroom renovation hit a snag. Lydia stayed. She labeled new baskets, meds, receipts, regrets empty. She proposed we move closer to her 10 blocks, then 4, then right upstairs in her building where I can take the cat at night if she is needy. She criticized my mother for being too hands-off, a sin she ranked just under arson. When I told her I'd booked a small cabin for a weekend, just us, no phones, one of those places where the wind makes rules, she congratulated me and then added herself to the group text for logistics. "I'll stay here with the cat," she typed. "You won't stay here," I typed back, hands shaking, deleting and rewriting the sentence until it didn't spit. "This is our weekend." She sent back a thumbs up that looked like a thumb pressed into a bruise. At the cabin, we remembered how to be quiet without listening for footsteps. We cooked onions until they told the truth. We fell asleep under a roof that didn't know any names. We made rules, no unannounced entries, no decisions by proxy, no binders unless they hold recipes. "We need her to agree," Maya said softly. "We need us to agree," I said, and watched a bird rearrange the morning. When we came home, Lydia had repainted our bedroom. "You'll thank me," she said, arms flecked, proud as a thief. The color was beautiful and wrong, like a promise you didn't make delivered in a gorgeous box. I felt something pedestrian and volcanic rise in my throat. "Get out," I said, quietly, because a quiet get out is a full sentence if you've been practicing swallowing periods for a year. Lydia froze, then laughed like a teacher told an offensive joke. "You're serious," she said, and the room became a courtroom. "Yes," I said. "We asked for time. You took a wall. I gave you a gift," she replied, eyes wet. "I keep giving you gifts because my daughter won't survive on your chaos." There it was, the central indictment. I turned to Maya. "Do you think I am chaos?" I asked. She looked at the new paint, at her mother's paint-splattered hands, at the cat under the bed drawing a line with her tail. "I think," she said, and her voice shook like a bridge, "that I don't know how to be safe unless my mother agrees I am." The rest of the conversation exists in the museum where people keep the exhibits of words they wished they'd said differently. I said I couldn't share a life with Lydia. Lydia said she couldn't share a life with anyone who didn't recognize her sacrifices. Maya said the thing a daughter says when two loves pull in opposite directions. "I can't choose, but not choosing is choosing," I said, which is true and cruel when you're the one who wants to be chosen. Lydia packed beautifully, like a soldier folding a flag. She took the framed diploma and left the Saint Magnet. "You'll come around," she told Maya in the doorway. He'll become reasonable or not. She kissed her forehead and ignored me entirely. When the door closed, the apartment exhaled and sounded like a new house you can't afford. We lasted another 3 months. We tried to build a moat out of rituals, Sunday pasta, phones in a drawer, the list on the fridge with the dumb son. But absence has a voice when it's trained by a presence that never learned to whisper. Lydia called every night at 9. If we didn't answer, she called again at 9:03. She texted photos of receipts, with notes like you overpaid and screenshots of articles about mold as if danger might be convinced to relocate by diligent forwarding. She asked Maya to stop by quickly and then kept her 3 hours. When I objected, Maya said, she needs me, and I said, I need you, and she said, her need is louder. That's the thing about loud. It wins even when it's wrong. The last straw was small and accurate. Maya had promised we'd spend Saturday painting the door the color we wanted, something foolish and joyful with a name like Harbor or Apricot. I bought the paint. I spread the tarp. I put on clothes I could ruin and waited with the kind of hope men are embarrassed to admit to. At 9, Lydia called. Maya answered. At 10, she left, just for an hour. At 2, I was still staring at an untouched door and a cat who decided the tarp was a COMPLICATED ocean. I texted, are you coming back? She replied, she had a dizzy spell. I can't leave yet. At 5, the door was still its tired, responsible brown, and the sun had left the room like a person slipping out of a conversation that won't change. At 7, Lydia posted a photo, her and Maya at a cafe, laughing, cappuccino foam like clouds that only behave for certain people. Maya came home at 9, smelling of coffee and duty. She felt better, she said, as if this were an apology and an explanation and a warm medal. I nodded at the door. It's still brown, I said. We can do it tomorrow, she offered, shrugging into the suggestion like a sweater that doesn't fit. Tomorrow is a continent we never reach, I said, and heard the kind of sentence you only say when you're about to run out of the person you've been. I can't live in a house where your mother is the thermostat, I added. I can't live in a house where you think love is weather, she shot back, quick and precise. We stood there separated by a bucket of paint and the stupid heroism of a plan we'd made out loud. We did the kind thing, which is also the devastating thing. We admitted that the shape of us couldn't survive the shape of Lydia. There was no villain, only a woman who had built her safety like a fortress and a daughter who had grown inside its walls and a man who kept trying to bring a picnic. We divided books like civilized people who remember who loved what first. We hugged in the kitchen and the cat twined around our calves and I whispered I love you and she whispered I know, which is both a blessing and a period. I moved out on a Wednesday because I hate leaving on Mondays. The door stayed brown. The tarp stayed folded. The paint can sat like a dare till someone braver threw it away. Months later, I saw them in the grocery store, all with the coffees. Lydia's hair was the same cathedral. Maya's eyes were tired and kind. They were arguing softly about beans. Lydia preferred dark roast. Maya wanted something gentle. I reached for the shelf and almost said something achingly polite. Instead, I nodded. Maya nodded back. For a second we stood in the small democracy of people choosing what to keep themselves awake with. Lydia didn't see me, or she did and chose the mercy of pretending she didn't. I left without buying anything, which is a lie. I bought 10 minutes of walking slowly around the block and thinking about door colors. In my new place, the Wi-Fi password is listen because I am not cured of being on the nose. I changed it once to boundaries, then felt like a cop, and changed it back. I learned to make coffee that tastes like agreement. I call my mother more. When she offers advice, I thank her and then do what I was going to do. And she laughs and says, good boy. Sometimes, I take the paint chips out of their envelope and line them up on the windowsill. Apricot looks foolish in the morning and perfect at dusk. Harbor looks safe until it doesn't. I haven't painted any door yet. I am practicing picking a color because I want it, not because someone will post it and say finally. Maya texts on my birthday. I text on hers. We use words like hope and proud, and you deserve as if we're placing coins on a river. Once she wrote, we're okay, you know. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed and then lit again and then I typed, I know, and meant it. Love didn't lose. It changed its address to something we can both find without asking permission at the door. The cat lives with her. When I visit to drop off a book or a joke, she stares from the windowsill and forgives nobody, which is her right. I bring beans that are somewhere between dark and gentle. I knock. I wait. When the door opens, it's still brown, and the light that falls out onto the hall is honest, and nobody has to change a password for the room to behave.
Hi guys, I'm Ruslan. Let's get into this shocking story right now.